can make it. Maybe we're gonna get started in like 2 more minutes. So this was on the mill log that when Mayor Lake was drained in the 1990s, they found it from the one in New York. So I think it's the ground is like the hill, the ground wall. Yeah. And there's a piece of paper down at that end that has the news story for when they found it. It's like a 3-year-old mill log. Yeah. Well, Marty will be here. Should I wait for my mom for another minute or two? Or should we start early? Yeah. I'm the slacker. Thank you for doing this, America. Perfect. Yeah, the ticket window. We have a ticket window back there from New Egypt, from their train station, and a bunch of New Egypt tickets in there too. There's Marty. We get to all shame her publicly. Actually, I don't know. I need to go drive up. Yeah. Because we used to have tracks here, but they got pulled a long time ago. Yeah. Well, that's why when a lot of people are like, bring back the trains, it's like, it's almost impossible. All the infrastructure for everything's gone. Yeah. Right. With like the CSX and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I had a buddy of mine when I worked at Hagley who didn't fly anymore. He would take trains. So he went down to Florida for Disney with his wife. And he took the train from Delaware to Florida. It was like a 20-something hour train. And he loved it. He loved every second of it. To Florida or? Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I'm jealous. I'm going to go with you. That sounds great.
Well, we work for 5 days. At least when 2 days going out in St. Paul as well.
Wow.
Then I take the train. I fly to St. Paul.
Yeah.
And I take the train. I'll be out for 5 days.
Oh,
Nice to have you guys here. Just you two?
I brought my chair.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Maybe I'll sit over
You
here.
can set up one if you
Oh,
like.
Lesson's over there. Let's go over there.
Hi, Bree. Okay. Ready to roll? Awesome. We'll let them get situated.
And then on the way back, I'll stay 3 days in St. Paul.
I would love to go visit St. Paul soon because it looks, every time that Mark talks about it, it sounds great. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Right. 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 Yeah. All right, everyone. Hello, 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 hello. Excellent. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. It's so great to see so many returning people. My name is Paulie Wenger. I'm the president of the Pemberton Township Historic Trust. Welcome to the North Pemberton Railroad Station Museum, which was a train station museum in the 1890s for the Pennsylvania Railroad Company, as well as partially the Union Transportation, which was a subsidiary. Anyways, thank you for being here today for another one of our speaker series. We have an excellent speaker here with us today, Dorothy Robbins Talavera, if I'm saying it correctly. Mm-hmm. Excellent. Who has a wonderful presentation about the Allinson family of Burlington County. We're going to do our presentation first. Then afterwards, we'll have a short break where I'm going to encourage you to come buy a book. And then after that, we'll have our membership meeting for the Historic Trust. Please feel free to stick around. We have some things to talk about, agendas and all that. Otherwise, our next event is August 16th when we have Judy Gaunt, who's going to be giving us a history of the Mount Holly Memorial Hospital, which I think is now 125, Virtua basically, yeah.
I was born there.
Which is now what, 100 and...
Ollie was also born there.
Yeah. What is it, 125 or 150 years old? Something around that long history. So I'm really excited for that. It's the 16th, which is a Sunday at 11 a.m. We are alternating Saturdays and Sundays because sometimes I do a Saturday and people say I want it on a Sunday, and sometimes we do a Sunday and they want it on a Saturday. So I said best of both worlds. After that, our next one will be September 26th. Which is Patrick Ward, who is doing a presentation about the Battle of Gloucester, 1777, which is the first time that the Marquis de Lafayette took command of American forces during the American Revolutionary War. So if you have a great time at this presentation, come back, visit us again in a month. And of course, we're always looking for volunteers. So if anyone likes history stuff and wants to help out, come talk to me. Otherwise, let's give a big round of applause for our speaker today.
Good morning. I'm delighted to be here. A couple of introductions before I get started. That's my brother, the guy in suspenders. That's Bill Robbins and his wife Karen Robbins live over in Vincenttown, and my grandson Jackson Kreifel. So I'm really delighted to have them here, and he's really useful for carrying my heavy suitcase, so I'm glad to have him around. And Bill and I were both born in Mount Holly Hospital, and our dad practiced there, so we've got huge connections with that place, so maybe I'll have to come back to the meeting. come from a family that values letters. For generations, our family has written letters and read letters and saved letters that they thought were going to be important someday, or letters that were interesting. Generations. And I inherited a trunk full of this stuff. So Bill, when future historians want to write about you and me, I've got all the letters that you and I wrote to Mom when we were away at school. Primary materials, very useful. It's in my closet.
You are the responsible one.
I'm the responsible one, yes. So it makes me laugh to have him mention me as the responsible one. So anyway, when I inherited this trunk of letters, I began going through it and reading everything, because that's how I clean up. I have to read it all and organize it and put like things together and see what it has to say. I can't just get rid of it. I have to sit there and read it. So it takes me a long time to get through anything. And so as I was going through this trunk of letters, I found something that made my heart skip a beat. I found something that I had known about all my life. Oh, I forgot to tell you the title of my talk. I guess I better. How and why I wrote this book and other books. And so this trunk full of letters figures into this. What I found when I was going through it was a stack about that thick of letters that had been written to our great-grandmother during the Civil War, letters from the front. Now, Bill and I have known about these letters all our lives, because every once in a while our mother would find a way to work it into the conversation. Well, you know we have the Civil War letters. And I had seen the stack a few times during my life, but now they were mine. I had them in my hand, and so I started unfolding them and reading them. And as I was reading them, I realized that Bill and our various cousins would probably also be interested in what these letters had to say. But the letters themselves were way too fragile to be passed from hand to hand. Hi, glad to see you. So I began typing them up. It was slow going, because I had to decipher the handwriting. There was vocabulary in there that I didn't know. They did not use punctuation, and some of the spelling was a little creative because it hadn't been standardized yet. And as I would go through this and type things up, as I would come across the name of a famous person or an event or a location, I would look it up. And of course that slowed me down too. But I would just take a hunk of it, copy and paste, put it right there in the manuscript that I was typing up, because I needed context and I needed some corroboration for the things that these people were talking about in these letters. And I always put the location of the website so I'd be able to find this stuff again. Well, once I had all of this together, I put all my Civil War stuff together, because we've got a lot of stuff from both sides of the family, Civil War documents and discharge papers and pension papers. So I scanned everything, I put it all together, took it to Staples, had one of these binders put on it, ran off a couple copies, gave one to Bill, put one in the Burlington County Historical Society, gave a couple more to cousins and friends, and called it a day. Okay, and then went on to the next project, of which I have many. Well, over the years, I became more interested in and more skillful in genealogical research. I know none of you have fallen into that bottomless pit, have you? So I had all the normal ones. I've got Ancestry, which I find as a useful starting point. I also like it because it gives me a visual, so I can see how people are connected to each other and kind of keep track of the levels of generations, because I tend to get confused about whether you're one generation back or 2 or 3. What did I do, Paulie? Oh, I see something different on here.
Here we go. Oh,
Okay,
did it go?
I'm good, so I can move on.
Let me see if it actually went through real quick.
Technology is not my
exit.
thing. Hi.
1 second, everyone. Dun dun dun.
So that's proof that there really were people in the audience.
And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
That one.
Good, thank you. So, yeah, I got that. This one I have such fun with. Do any of you have a subscription to newspapers.com? What a hoot! Isn't it amazing the things that you can find in there? I found wonderful stuff about the people that I was researching, and I continue to look people up in newspapers.com. And sometimes I just sit there and fiddle with it and say, what was happening in San Francisco on the day I was born? But that kind of gets me off topic here. And then I became more skillful in finding and using a lot of other resources as well. I've gotten a lot of very valuable stuff out of the Trenton archives and off of various websites and the National Park Service database on soldiers. So I've gotten quite a lot of this stuff that way. Now, as I found more and more information about the people who were in these letters, a story began to emerge, and I realized that this was no longer doing them justice, that these people really needed me to give them a little bit more effort and see what I could find. So the first thing I did was separate out things that were not related to the Allinson family. Now, Polly mentioned that I was going to be talking about the Allinson family of Burlington County, but we had other stuff too. So in the letters, there were letters from 2 of my great-grandmother's relatives, one from her cousin, Joseph Allinson, and one from her brother, who became a Marine later on. And then we had the things from our great-grandfather, how many greats, Bill? Great-great-grandfather, Aaron Robbins. So I separated out the things that were not related to the Allinson family, put them aside for something else to do. And so, since I had information about these guys, there they are. The one on the left is Aaron Robbins. The one on the right is William E. Shinn, who became a Marine towards the end of the Civil War. So I separated the 2 of them out, and each of them got their own story, which I published. In the Beverly Bee, I published Aaron's story, as much of it as I had at that point. And then I found this magazine called Civil War Navy and got in touch with them, and they got real excited about the story that I had about the Marine, because they just didn't have a lot of things about Marines. And so in their winter of this last year, winter magazine, they published that article. So, okay, what's important to me is I got their names in print, I got the information out there for anyone who wants to research it. Okay, we're good. So, this is the lady who received and saved the letters. This is our great-grandmother, Vashti Shinn. She became Vashti Sutton. So the letters that she collected were from her cousin, Joseph Allinson, or Allison. I'll tell you about why he changed his name, and also from her brother, William Shinn. She's the one that saved the letters in this stack that was tied together with baling twine. So, who are these people, the Allinsons? These are the people that I talk about in the book. The one on the left is Joseph Allison. He always referred to himself as Allison. He signed his letters Allison. When his name appeared in the newspaper, it appeared as Allison, never Allinson. I don't know why he did that, but he did. So that made it interesting in trying to find him in historical records. But once I was able to kind of fiddle around with two spellings, his story began to emerge. He was the oldest of three brothers. The Allinson family was very prominent in Burlington County. If you look at the thick book about historical biographical sketches of Burlington County, there are two of the Allinsons mentioned in there. This guy's, their ancestors. But they're also descendants of the Cooper family of Camden. So they have a tremendous pedigree of very prominent Quakers. The one in the middle is David Cooper Allinson. He always went by Allinson. The family called him Cooper. Professionally, he went by D.C. Allinson. And among other things, he was an attorney with a practice in Trenton. And then the third brother, the youngest, was John. John was the only one who got married, and that is his wife. He married Lucy Lever of the Upper Springfield monthly meeting. And they lived around here. In fact, I came to this very spot several years ago trying to figure out where they lived, and it was Paulie who helped me find the location, probably of the farm that they bought, the farm that was mentioned in the letters. So this is the cast of characters. These are the people about whom I was able to get much more information. Now, Paulie and I were talking before you came in about how one of the fun things about historical research is you get a piece of information over there and you just kind of put it aside, and then years later you find something over here that relates to it, and all of a sudden the two pieces come together. Well, guess what? John was in the same outfit as Aaron Robbins. They were both in the 23rd Volunteer Regiment. They were both captured in the battle at Salem Church. They were both taken prisoner, and they were both paroled. So all of the information I had done researching Aaron's military background applied to John as well. So that was a nice piece of, oh, I've already got this, and thank goodness you can copy and paste from your word processing and just put it in there. That saved me a lot of time. But there were a lot of other people in these letters too. Joseph was the one who wrote the letters. He was quite loquacious, full of himself, and I can honestly say that if he and I were in a family get-together, I probably would not have liked being with him. He was just pompous, and I just didn't like him. As I was reading his letters and researching about him in the newspaper, I'm sorry to say, I just didn't like him. But anyway, he was a real name dropper. He knew a lot of people, and in his letters he mentions lots and lots of names. Some of them are people back here in Burlington County. Others are people that he met when he was in the Army, people that he saw die in the Army, and he wrote dispatches back to the New Jersey Mirror newspaper. And so there were lots of other people, and as I was typing this up, I began looking up all of these other people. So all of a sudden I had this information. I didn't do a lot of information, but I was real curious about who these people were and what happened to them. So I got all this stuff together in a manuscript and met a friend for coffee. And I said, I've got this project I'd like you to take a look at. And my thought was that he was just going to say, well, yeah, Doc, that's a really good project. Or he was going to say, put it away, this is not worth seeing the light of day. Well, lo and behold, he worked for Stockton University for the South Jersey Cultural Historical Center, and he called me up and said, we want to publish it. And I said, why, sure. So the thing got published. I want to digress. I want to go back just a little bit about putting this story together. I'm not a Civil War expert, and I don't want to be a Civil War expert. I don't want to be a military expert, but I had all this stuff. And I know from going to the library that there are hundreds of books out there about the Civil War, hundreds, written by people who are very knowledgeable and really know what they're talking about. And I kept thinking, what in the world could I possibly do? What value could I possibly add to a Civil War story? And I was bemoaning this fact to Bill and Karen, and Bill said, well, Dottie, there's your story right there. They were Quaker, and they went to war. And once I understood that inherent conflict, that moral dilemma, that's when the story began to evolve. That's when it began to get really exciting, putting it together in the form of a book. Another thing that made it fun, when I gave my first iteration to a friend to read, she said, you've got all this stuff in here about the men and what they did. You don't mention the women. Well, yeah, because in the records that I was looking up, there wasn't much mention of the women. You know, they got acknowledged in the census as living there, or in the monthly meeting, the minutes of the monthly meeting of having announced their intentions to marry, but that was pretty much it. But I began pulling all of that stuff together, and I called it The Women They Left Behind, and I did a section about them as well. And once I started looking at them all in one piece, that kind of gave me a different perspective as well. Now, about the women, since I did not have a lot of facts about them, in that section, I began thinking, well, if I had met these women, what would I have liked to ask them? So I made a list of the questions that I would have asked the mother, the wife, and I put those questions in there. Things like, was there anybody standing with you at the gravesite? Did you ever get his belongings back? So you can guess by those two questions that one of these guys didn't make it home. I'm not going to tell you which one. You got to read the book. Okay. So, how and why I wrote this book. So here I am at this point. I have this collection. The first book in the collection was the one about my dad. My dad wrote his memoir, and I curated his papers and cleaned out his filing cabinet. Some of you may have known Dr. Robbins because he practiced around here. And so I published his story. And this has taken on a life of its own as well. So this was the first thing in the collection, and that was added to with this about our grandfather's sister. I have diaries and letters written by this woman, Essie Sutton, who was born and raised on a farm outside of Jacksonville and went on to have a career that nobody could ever have predicted for her. She became an international medical relief worker in the Balkans after World War I. Who ever heard of such a thing? She did it. And so now, with this third book and with the publication of these two articles, I'm accomplishing my goal. My goal was to get their names in print. Well, why? Why did I publish these? Why did I do all this work? Besides, the research for it is fun, but why did I go to the effort and, quite frankly, the expense of getting this stuff published? Well, these people were not famous. They were ordinary people just living their lives, just trying to make it through the day, and many of the things that they had to deal with, just making it through the day was a heroic effort in itself. They, through no fault of their own, they were thrust into impossible, horrendous situations. And they made the best of it. And I thought, that is the story that needs to be told. We cannot let their names and their story be forgotten. So that's what I do with my books and my articles. I use my family archives and write stories about real people whom I've gotten to know by doing the research and reading letters and diaries they have written and looking at all their certifications, just living their lives, accomplishing extraordinary things, unexpected things, and we just can't let these people be forgotten. And so to borrow a phrase that we hear a lot in the news, just say their names. By saying their names, by putting their names and their story in print, then even if Jackson and his mother and aunt throw everything in my trunk away, at least the story is there. The story is out there. Their names and their accomplishments and their lives will never be forgotten. End of story. Okay? Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I have to tell you, William, I forget the initial.
William E. Mm-hmm.
Shin.
Yeah.
My sister's married to William Shin here from Pemberton.
Yeah, there were several William Shins, yeah.
And it's spelled the same way, so that was very exciting.
Yeah. And so
But
that,
you don't know his background.
that's one of the things that made the research funny. Are we talking about this one or that one? And even with Aaron, you know, they all gave their kids the same names. And so you have to sort
I
through.
remember growing up in Pemberton, there's also a Sutton family.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of Suttons.
Yeah, okay. They were probably related to us somehow. Bill?
Perhaps you could talk about the Allinsons and Allinson in Congress.
Which one? Okay. I always have to refresh my memory. I put it all in here to get the names right. Okay. I confused generations here. Okay, so the original Allinson came over from England, settled in Burlington, didn't live there very long. And let's see, are you talking about Samuel? There are a couple here, Samuel and David. David was their father, so let me talk about David. He's the one that I really know most about. David was the father of these three boys, and he was a publisher. He wrote several well-respected books. He sold books for other people and was quite well known for giving talks because very well educated. So he was one of them. But then there were cousins and uncles and quite frankly, I'm a little confused after all this time about who the generations were. But one of them was known as the Burlington Emancipator, and he's in here. And then the other one, Samuel and various cousins. So I'm sorry to not be able to give you a lot of information just because at this point, Bill, I've moved on to other things and I forget. But it's in here, and it doesn't take very long to read that part. You don't even have to buy the book. Just stand here and read that chapter, and those questions will be answered for you. Okay? Sir?
What was the impetus for the Quakers that you mentioned to get involved in the military at the time of the Civil War?
Yeah.
Revolution?
Yeah. There was this kind of double motivation. On the one hand, the Quakers were pacifists who from the very beginning stated to the King of England that they would not be involved in any kind of violence, and that included not being involved in any kind of government activities that supported war of any kind. So there was that. But then on the other side, is the light of God in all of us. And way before anybody else had done it, the Quakers told their members that they had to get rid of slaves. If they had enslaved people, no more. And in fact, one of the people that I can no longer remember the name of is actually written up in the minutes of the Burlington Monthly meeting, confessing that he owned and sold another human being for money. So there's this. So what do? You're damned if you don't, damned if you do. You don't want to get involved in the violence, but on the other hand, you can't let the institution of slavery continue. So I'll go back, since you're asking about that, let me go back to the boys. Okay. This one, right here, Joseph, was all fired up about saving the Union. And so he went to Trenton from the very first day, and was among those people milling about waiting to enlist. You probably have read that initially way more people volunteered than they had room for in the militia. He was right there from the very beginning, and he signed up. And you might ask, what qualifications did he have that would make him a good soldier? None. Anyway, that's him. The one in the middle we'll come back to. And then the youngest brother, I already told you, was in the 23rd. Okay, middle brother, D.C. Cooper, did not enlist. He was the only one of the three who did not enlist. Instead, he performed a lot of work with the Sanitary Commission. He did pro bono work for the Sanitary Commission, especially skillful in helping soldiers, veterans, and their survivors get the money that was coming to them. He did it all for free. He did some inspections of hospitals because he also had some medical training. He had some pharmacy training. He was a jack of all trades. Took him a long time to figure out what he wanted to do when he grew up. So that is their involvement in it. But you can see that by being Quakers, they really had to give it serious thought about what they were going to do. So I don't know what discussions took place around the dining room table, but you can imagine they were lively.
Always some discussions and meetings too.
Yeah, oh yes, if you look at the minutes. Have you read some of them?
Yes.
Yeah. What did you notice?
Well, depending on the individual meeting, we lived near Falls in Middletown, across the river, and back to the time of the Revolution in the 1775 Philadelphia meeting ruling
Right,
that you mentioned.
right.
There's been pushback, there have been schisms, there have been all kinds
Yeah.
of stuff. They're fun to.
Yeah, and of course the Orthodox and the Hicksites had different views on the subject. So it depended what your meeting was, whether you were going to get sanctioned because of this or sanctioned because of that. It was a difficult situation.
And there were also loyalist sympathies in
Right,
a lot of cases back at the time of the Revolution.
right. And they were wealthy. A lot of them were wealthy, and they were protecting their business interests. You can certainly understand that.
Of course, it's good to be in Pemberton and talk about loyalist Quakers, because James Pemberton is the namesake of Pemberton Township and Pemberton Borough, was a Quaker during the Revolutionary War who got arrested in Philadelphia and exiled to Virginia for 8 months because he was the clerk of the yearly meeting, and the Patriots didn't believe the Quakers were good to have in the city. So they arrested them without cause, sent them to Virginia,
Jeez.
and 2 of them died along the way. I think they killed him and Kennedy.
They threw a bunch of them out of
Yeah.
Philadelphia.
Yeah. We forget how dangerous it was to have ideas that were different from those people around you, regardless of whether they were religious or political issues.
Nothing's changed.
Life goes on, doesn't it? Other questions?
I was interested by the David Allinson. We have in our collection here a full run of the Rural Visitor, the
active in St. Mary's Episcopal Church in Burlington. They lived in Burlington. And he was approaching middle age when he got married to a woman from Philadelphia, and then they had 4 children. One of them died. But he was editor of the Rural Visitor and another magazine as well, and just apparently traveled quite a lot, and apparently had a steady stream of people who came to their home on business and also just for intellectual discussions. So, yes, died in Pemberton. And many of these people are buried, not all of them, but many of them are buried in the graveyard behind the Burlington Meeting House. There's a whole section of Allinsons and in-laws who are buried there. And in the back of the book, there is a layout of the cemetery that Bill was able to help me get. And so you can see where the Allinson names are in there. I have no information, I have no evidence that DC ever behaved like a Quaker or was active in a Quaker meeting. I also have no evidence that Joseph was ever active in a meeting. I do have evidence that the youngest, that John and Lucy, were active in meeting.
I know you're trying to get people trying to teach us so that we get people to buy the book.
All right,
I think-
spoiler, yeah.
I think you would be remiss in not mentioning that Joseph did not survive the war.
Okay, yeah. Joseph did not survive.
Still in that second.
Spoiler.
Second
He
war.
did not, he did not survive. And in fact, on the back of one of the envelopes in my collection, written in pencil, it says, killed, just one word, killed. The newspaper, the New Jersey Mirror, gives the whole story. He was shot in the leg, or as it was put in the paper, had his leg shot off at Manassas, was evacuated to a hospital in Washington, and was doing pretty well, because someone who knew him there in the hospital wrote home to the paper that he's coming along nicely, but he knows more than the doctors themselves, which indicated that perhaps he wasn't following doctors' orders, and he died of infection. That's reported in the paper as well. So his body was shipped back to Burlington. He is buried in the Broad Street Methodist burying ground, so he is not with the other Allinsons in the Quaker cemetery. So, medicine being what it was, but had he followed doctor's orders, perhaps he would have lived to tell a tale.
I'm amazed by the mountain thing, the balloons.
Oh!
Could you spin it in a couple of yards?
Okay, well, I told you that every time I found something in a letter, I'd look it up. And so there were several mentions of the balloon. They were stationed in Alexandria, Virginia, on the grounds of the Theological Seminary. The balloon went over, the balloon. So what the heck is this balloon? Well, Professor Lamontagne had developed this balloon using cable from Roebling, and hot air balloon, and they were experimenting with using it for reconnaissance. And so one day in camp, there was a demonstration. The balloon went up, the balloon went over, and there were several other mentions of this balloon as well. So the thing about Joseph is he saw, and William in his letters too, they saw and were involved in a lot of historic stuff. And here it is, he's just writing in these letters. Someday, Bill, somebody's going to be reading our letters and they say, that Bill Robbins, he was really there when history happened. So I did some research on Professor Lamontagne and put that in the book as well, just to beef up what was in the letter. The book is in 3 parts. The first part is the story of the Allinson family. The second part is the transcription of the letters themselves, along with the things that I found when I was researching them. And then the third part are these additional names, just appendices with other names that just need to be put in print. Does that answer
Yep.
the question there?
Any other questions? Cindy, did you have a question?
Yeah, do you know which meeting house they were affiliated with?
Burlington, the one there on High Street.
On, High Street?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge. Now, at different times, when John and his family moved out here, they were involved in well, they were in a couple of them. So I don't remember seeing them in Southampton, but they were in Upper Springfield. They were certainly in the records of Upper Springfield. Okay,
Great. I think that's, unless there's any last questions.
you're welcome to browse, look at the stuff that's over there. If you want the books, fine. If you don't, that's also fine.
So let's give one more round of applause to the I can tell you all, I bought a copy early and I've been thumbing through it, and there are so many letters in here from and about Pemberton, it's our town, like all throughout this book. So this is going to be really helpful for us in the Historic Trust to have in our collection to reference the Allinson family. So let's take 10 minutes, walk around, talk to some folks. We're going to be meeting back up at 12 exact for our monthly meeting. We have some stuff to talk about. So see everyone back at 12.
Excellent. I'll just take my.
Oh, yes.